The world wants you to react. Every day, every hour, there is a silent war being waged for the most valuable resource you possess, your attention. It's in the aggressive tone of a colleague, the manipulative comment of a family member, or the digital noise designed to keep you in a state of constant outrage. Most people live their entire lives as puppets, their strings pulled by anyone who knows how to provoke them. They believe that by explaining themselves, by defending their honor, or by winning an argument, they are gaining ground. But they are losing. They are bleeding energy. True power does not lie in the ability to strike back. It lies in the ability to remain untouched. This is the art of strategic indifference, the understanding that your reaction is a currency, and you must become the most miserly person on earth when it comes to spending it. When you stop giving people the power to disturb your peace, you become dangerous. Not dangerous because you are a threat, but dangerous because you are uncontrollable. Stoic philosophy teaches us that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. But there is a deeper layer to this. We suffer because we grant external events the status of importance. We decide that a stranger's insult matters. We decide that being misunderstood is a tragedy. But what if you simply withdrew that decision? What if, when faced with chaos, you met it with a profound, unshakable emptiness? Think about the people you admire for their strength. They aren't the ones screaming the loudest. They are the ones who can walk through a storm of criticism and not even look up to see if it's raining. They have realized a fundamental truth. Your life is defined by what you choose to ignore. In a world that demands your participation in every petty drama, being unavailable is an act of rebellion. It is the ultimate discipline of the mind. When you refuse to react, you create a vacuum. And humans, by their very nature, are terrified of a vacuum. When you stay silent in the face of an attack, the attacker begins to feel the weight of their own aggression. Without your reaction to feed it, their anger has nowhere to go. It collapses back on them. This is why silence makes people reveal their true face. In the absence of your response, they have nothing to look at but their own insecurity. But to reach this level of detachment, you must first kill the person you used to be. You must kill the part of you that craves to be understood. Most of your stress comes from the illusion that you can control how others perceive you. You can't. You could be the most perfect version of yourself, and someone will still find a reason to hate you. Let them. Let them be wrong about you. There is a terrifying freedom in being the villain in someone else's mind, while you are a hero in your own life. The discipline of the unshakable mind starts with a single, brutal realization. Nothing is as important as your internal state. If you lose your temper, you have lost the battle before it even began. If you feel the need to explain your worth, you have already devalued yourself. From this moment on, your goal is to become an enigma, a person who observes everything, but is moved by nothing. Отлично. Идем дальше. Этот блок развивает тему психологии власти через тишину и переходит к концепции социальной недоступности. Текст плавно продолжает предыдущую мысль. Блок 2. The Architecture of Silence and Power. This internal sovereignty is not a gift. It is a fortress you build brick by brick, through every impulse you choose not to follow. To understand why silence is so potent, you must understand the mechanics of human interaction. Most people operate on a system of social debt. When someone speaks to you, you feel an evolutionary pressure to answer. When someone questions you, you feel a biological urge to defend. This is the trap of social compliance. By breaking this cycle, you aren't just being quiet. You are asserting that your internal world is not for sale. Consider the dynamic of the most powerful figures in history and fiction. They share a common trait. They are rarely the ones filling the air with noise. They understand that every word spoken is a potential vulnerability. When you speak, you are giving away information about your thoughts, your fears, and your boundaries. But when you remain silent, the other person has to guess. And in that guessing, they project their own fears onto you. You become a mirror, reflecting their instability back at them. This is the power of being unavailable. In our modern age, we have mistaken accessibility for importance. We think that being on call for every friend, every notification, and every request makes us valuable. In reality, it makes us a servant. The more available you are, the less your presence is worth. Think of it through the lens of economic scarcity. That which is everywhere has no value. Gold is precious because it is hard to find. Air is free because it is everywhere. By withdrawing your immediate presence and your immediate reaction, you move from being air to being gold in the social hierarchy. But this isn't just about social games. It's about biological mastery. When someone provokes you, your amygdala, the ancient emotional part of your brain, is screaming for a fight or flight response. Your heart rate increases, your breath shallows, and your logic begins to fade. If you act in this state, you are a slave to your biology. The art of strategic indifference requires you to use your prefrontal cortex, the seat of reason, to override that primal scream. You must learn to sit with the discomfort of being attacked without moving a muscle. It is in this specific moment of discomfort where your true character is forged. If you can sit through the heat of an insult and remain as cold as stone, you have achieved a level of discipline that 99% of humanity will never know. You start to see the aggressor, not as a threat, but as a fascinating biological specimen. You watch their face redden, you listen to the tremor in their voice, and you realize they are the one in pain, not me. Their anger is a confession of their own inability to handle the situation. Why would you ever let someone who is failing a test of character become your teacher? This shift in perspective is what makes you untouchable. When you stop caring about being understood, you realize that you don't owe the world an explanation for your existence. You don't owe anyone a walkthrough of your logic. If someone misinterprets your silence as weakness, let them. That misinterpretation is their tactical error, not yours. In fact, it is often better to be underestimated. When people believe you are weak because you don't fight back, they become careless. They stop hiding their intentions. They show you exactly who they are because they no longer fear you. Being unavailable also means being unavailable to the common anxieties that plague the masses. Most people are deeply invested in things that have zero impact on their actual lives. Celebrity scandals, political theater, the opinions of distant acquaintances. By practicing strategic indifference, you prune these dead branches from your mind. You reclaim the cognitive bandwidth that others are wasting. This is why the disciplined individual often achieves more in a year than others do in a decade. They aren't smarter. They are simply less distracted by the noise of the world. Идем дальше. Этот блок посвящен теме силы отсутствия и тому, как исчезновение и отказ от самооправдания превращают вас из жертвы обстоятельств в архитектора собственной реальности. Текст продолжает литься единым потоком. Блок 3. The power of absence and the death of the ego. This leads us to one of the most misunderstood aspects of power, the necessity of absence. We are told from a young age that to be successful, we must be out there. We must network. We must be seen. We must be heard. But the Stoic and the strategist know a different truth. Your power grows in the shadows, and it is validated by your absence. When you are always present, always responding, and always available, you become a background noise in the lives of others. But when you become strategically unavailable, your presence, when you do choose to grant it, carries the weight of a mountain. Strategic withdrawal is not about playing games or being manipulative. It is about protecting your sanctuary. When you stop caring about being understood, you realize that most people aren't actually listening to your words. They are looking for a weakness to exploit or a mirror for their own ego. By withdrawing your explanations, you starve their ego. You become a mystery that they cannot solve. And because they cannot solve you, they cannot control you. This is the moment you become truly dangerous in the eyes of the mediocre. To be dangerous is not to be violent. It is to be a person whose mind is not for sale, a person whose internal peace is not dependent on external approval. The ego is a hungry beast. It wants to be right. It wants to have the last word. It wants to win the argument at the dinner table or in the comments section. But every time you feed the ego, you starve your soul. You trade your long-term serenity for a 5-second hit of dopamine that comes from winning a petty exchange. The disciplined man or woman knows that the only real win is the one where you didn't lose your cool. If you walked away from a provocation without a single ripple on the surface of your mind, you have won a victory far greater than any verbal takedown could ever provide. You must learn to embrace the unshakable mind. Think of your mind as a deep, vast ocean. On the surface, there might be waves, storms, and debris. But at the depth of 500 feet, there is total, absolute silence. No matter how fierce the hurricane is on the surface, the depths remain untouched. Most people live their entire lives on the surface. They are tossed around by every wind of opinion and every wave of circumstance. But through the discipline of strategic indifference, you learn to live in the depths. You observe the storms on the surface, but you do not identify with them. You are the depth, not the wave. This is why silence makes people reveal everything. When you meet an attack with a calm, steady gaze and a refusal to participate, you are holding up a mirror. The other person's frantic energy has nowhere to attach itself. It bounces back and hits them with double the force. In that silence, they begin to see their own reflection, their own lack of control, their own petty fears. They will either respect you for your composure, or they will hate you for reminding them of their own weakness. Either way, you have maintained your position of power. You have remained the observer, while they have become the spectacle. But how do you handle the internal pressure? The urge to speak is often stronger than the urge to listen. It requires you to treat your words as bullets. You don't fire them at every shadow that moves. You save them. You wait. You speak only when your words are more powerful than your silence. And in a world of constant, meaningless chatter, a person of few well-chosen words is a person who commands the room without ever raising their voice. One of the most profound leaks in a person's power is the habitual need to explain themselves. We have been socialized to believe that if we are misunderstood, we must clarify. If we make a decision that others don't like, we must justify it. But you must understand a cold, hard truth. An explanation is often a subtle form of an apology. When you explain your actions to someone who hasn't earned that right, you are implicitly saying, "I need your permission to be who I am." The art of being untouchable requires you to master the discipline of non-explanation. When you stop caring about being understood, you realize that your reasons are your own. If you choose to be silent, if you choose to be unavailable, if you choose to walk a path that others don't comprehend, you don't owe the world a roadmap of your intentions. Every time you try to convince someone of your value or the correctness of your path, you are handing them the scales to weigh your worth. Take the scales back. This is why they lose control when you stop reacting. Their control is based on the assumption that you will play the game of social validation. They throw a hook of criticism, expecting you to bite by defending yourself. When you don't bite, when you simply look at them with the calm indifference of a mountain looking at a passing cloud, the hook has nothing to snag. You are no longer dangerous because you are aggressive. You are dangerous because you are unmanipulatable. You have removed the handle that people use to pull you in the direction they want. Think about the silence of the Stoic. It isn't a passive silence. It is an active, strategic choice. It is the realization that most people don't want to understand you. They want to categorize you so they can dismiss you. By refusing to explain yourself, you remain uncategorized. You stay in that mysterious space where they cannot find your buttons. If they can't find your buttons, they can't push them. This is the discipline that makes you untouchable. Let us look at the psychological weight of when you stop caring about being understood, you become dangerous. This danger arises from your sudden lack of need. A person who needs nothing from others, not even their approval, is the only truly free person in the room. Most people are chained to the opinions of their peers like prisoners to a wall. When you break those chains, you become a ghost in the machine. You can move through social spaces, professional environments, and personal conflicts without being tethered to the outcome. You are playing the long game, while everyone else is distracted by the immediate itch of being right. This indifference is your shield. Imagine someone tries to gaslight you or project their insecurities onto you. If you are desperate to be understood, you will spend hours or days in mental loops, rehearsing what you should have said. You are giving that person free rent in your mind. But if you embrace strategic indifference, you simply observe the projection. You see it for what it is, a desperate attempt by a fragile ego to find balance. You don't need to fix their perception of you because their perception of you is none of your business. It is a shadow on the wall, and you are the light that creates it. By adopting this stance, you begin to reveal the true nature of those around you. When people can't control you through guilt, explanations, or reactions, they will often double down on their aggression. They will call you cold, arrogant, or heartless. Do not be moved. These labels are merely the tools of those who have lost their grip on you. In fact, when the labels start flying, it is a sign that your discipline is working. You have become a locked door that they can no longer peek. Идем дальше. Этот блок раскрывает механику того, как ваше молчание и отсутствие реакции заставляют других терять опору и раскрывать свои истинные намерения. Текст продолжает сохранять ту же атмосферу и ритм. Блок 5. The Silent Revelation and the Vacuum of Power. There is a psychological phenomenon that occurs when two people sit in silence. The person with the weaker frame will always be the first to break it. In social dynamics, silence is an abyss, and most people are terrified of falling into it. They feel an almost physical pressure to fill the void with words, excuses, and nervous energy. This is why silence makes people reveal everything. When you master the art of being still while the other person is frantic, you aren't just waiting, you are interrogating them without saying a single word. Think of a situation where someone has done you wrong or is trying to manipulate you. Their entire strategy depends on your counterattack. They have prepared their defense for your anger. They have prepared their lies for your questions. But they have not prepared for your silence. When you look at them and say nothing, their prepared script becomes useless. They begin to over-explain. They start to stutter. They provide details you didn't ask for. In their desperate attempt to read your mind through your silence, they end up handing you the keys to theirs. This is the Stoic discipline that makes you untouchable. It's about understanding that the less you move, the more others must move around you. By remaining static, you become the center of gravity. You become the observer of the storm rather than a leaf caught in its wind. This isn't just a tactic for negotiation. It's a philosophy for existence. When you stop caring about being understood, you gain the ability to listen to what isn't being said. You hear the fear behind the boast. You see the insecurity behind the insult. You realize that most human conflict is just a collection of frightened children wearing adult masks, screaming for someone to validate their existence. By refusing to provide that validation, you are not being cruel. You are being truthful. You are refusing to participate in a lie. This is why they can't control you if you don't explain yourself. Control requires a handle, a hook. Your explanations, your emotional outbursts, and your justifications are the handles you give to the world. A man without handles cannot be moved. When you stop explaining your why, you leave the world with only your what, and your what is a solid, immovable reality that they must either accept or walk away from. But let us look at the internal transformation that happens during this process. To be silent while being attacked requires a level of unshakable calm that must be practiced daily. It is the art of watching your ego scream for justice and choosing to ignore it. Your ego wants to be the hero who wins the debate. Your soul wants to be the master who wins the life. You cannot have both. Every time you open your mouth to win a petty argument, you lose a piece of your internal sovereignty. You trade your peace for a moment of pride. The most dangerous person in any room is the one who is comfortable with silence. They don't need to dominate the conversation to be noticed. They don't need to brag to be respected. They are unavailable to the common hunger for attention. This lack of need is a superpower. When you don't need anything from the people around you, not their praise, not their agreement, not even their understanding, you become a force of nature. You become like the mountain that doesn't care if the climber admires it or curses it. The mountain simply stands. This is the discipline that makes you untouchable. It is the realization that your energy is finite and every reaction is a leak in your battery. Stop leaking. Start containing. When you contain your energy, your presence becomes magnetic. People will wonder why you aren't reacting like everyone else. They will wonder what you know that they don't. And in that wonder, your influence grows. Not because you fought for it, but because you were the only one who didn't lose themselves in the noise. Идем дальше. Этот блок раскрывает концепцию недоступности не как физического отсутствия, а как психологического дефицита, который превращает тебя в объект уважения и опасения. Block 6. The scarcity of presence and the freedom of the ghost. In a world that is loud, crowded, and desperate for connection, the person who is truly unavailable becomes a rare and intimidating phenomenon. This is the core of the Stoic discipline that makes you untouchable. You must realize that availability is the death of mystery. If people can reach you at any time, if they can predict your reactions, and if they know exactly what you think about every topic, they have already conquered you. They have mapped out your territory, and you have no more secrets to protect. The power of being unavailable is the power of scarcity. When you withdraw your attention from the trivial, you are essentially telling the world that your time and your mind are high-value assets. This is not about being busy in the modern sense of running around with a frantic schedule. It is about being spiritually and emotionally unavailable to anything that does not serve your higher purpose. It is the ability to say no, not just with your words, but with your entire aura. When people realize they can't get a rise out of you, they stop trying to play with your emotions. They realize that you are a locked vault, and they don't have the combination. This unavailability is what makes you dangerous in the most sophisticated sense. A dangerous person is one who cannot be predicted. If you don't care about being understood, you are free to act in ways that defy social expectations. You are free to walk away from a good deal that compromises your integrity. You are free to leave a conversation that has become beneath you. You are free to remain silent when everyone else is shouting. This lack of dependency on social cues makes people deeply uneasy because they cannot find the strings to pull you. Think about why silence makes people reveal everything. It's because in your unavailability, people begin to project their own internal dramas onto you. Because you aren't feeding them information, they have to manufacture it. They start to wonder, what is he thinking? Why isn't he responding? Is he judging me? Is he planning something? Their own anxiety becomes their worst enemy. You haven't done anything to them, yet they are being dismantled by their own minds. This is the ultimate art of unshakable calm. You remain the still point in a turning world while everyone else burns their energy trying to figure you out. This brings us to the discipline of the untouchable mind. To be untouchable means that your happiness and your self-worth are unavailable to the public. They are kept in a private sanctuary where no one else's opinion can reach. Most people carry their hearts and their egos on their sleeves, allowing every passing stranger to take a swipe at them. The Stoic, however, keeps his value hidden deep within. If someone praises you, it doesn't change your temperature. If someone insults you, it doesn't change your pulse. You are unavailable to both the carrot and the stick. When you stop caring about being understood, you also stop caring about being right in the eyes of the ignorant. You realize that a lion does not turn around when a small dog barks. The lion is not being mean or arrogant. The lion is simply unavailable to the dog's reality. The two exist in different dimensions of purpose. When you find your purpose, when you commit to your own discipline, you naturally become unavailable to the petty squabbles of those who have no direction. Your silence is not a weapon you use against them. It is a shield you use to protect your mission. The world will try to lure you back into the noise. It will use guilt. It will use emergencies. It will use the promise of temporary validation. But you must remain a ghost in their machine. Be present in body, but keep your soul strategically withdrawn. Let them see your work. Let them see your results, but never let them see your struggle or your need for their applause. By the time they realize you are no longer playing their game, you will be miles ahead of them, fueled by the energy you saved by simply not caring. This journey into the heart of strategic indifference leads to a single transformative destination: the sovereignty of the self. When you have mastered the art of being unavailable, when you have killed the need to be understood, and when you have embraced the power of silence, you arrive at a place of unshakable calm that the world can neither give nor take away. This is the state where you are no longer a subject of the social empire. You are the emperor of your own internal kingdom. True sovereignty is the ability to remain centered when the world around you is in flames. It is the realization that they can't control you if you don't explain yourself is not just a tactic, but a declaration of independence. By withholding your explanations, you are asserting that your logic, your values, and your soul are private property. You are no longer inviting the world to sit at your table and critique your life. You have closed the doors, not out of fear, but out of a profound respect for your own peace. This is why, when you stop caring about being understood, you become dangerous. You become a person who cannot be bought with praise or broken with criticism. You become a person who acts not for the applause of the gallery, but for the approval of the internal judge. This internal judge is far more demanding than any external critic, but its rewards are eternal. While others are exhausted from the constant performance of social media, social status, and social validation, you are replenished by your own solitude. You have found the art of unshakable calm because you have stopped looking for it in the reflections of others' eyes. The final stage of this discipline is the realization that your silence is actually the most honest form of communication you possess. In a world of lies, being someone who doesn't feel the need to manipulate others' perceptions is a radical act of truth. You are saying to the world, I am here, I am focused, I am indifferent to your chaos. This message carries more weight than 1,000 speeches. It is the frequency of the untouchable. As you move forward from this hour of reflection, remember that the world will test your newfound sovereignty. It will send provocateurs, it will send distractions, and it will send the siren song of your own ego, whispering that you should just set the record straight. Do not listen. Remain in the depth of your ocean. Watch the ripples on the surface and smile at their insignificance. Your power is in your stillness. Your victory is in your absence. Your strength is in your refusal to be moved. You are now equipped with the stoic discipline that makes you untouchable. Use it wisely. Use it to build an empire of the mind that no external force can conquer. Be the silence that reveals everything. Be the ghost that cannot be grasped. Be the mountain that remains unmoved by the wind. Because in the end, the person who wins is not the one who shouted the loudest, but the one who never lost their center. You are that person. You are unshakable. You are calm. You are free. Конечно. Чтобы догнать объем до 60 тысяч знаков и сделать видео по-настоящему глубоким, мы добавим 4 масштабных блока. Мы разберем конкретные сценарии, социальную иерархию, ментальные ловушки, искусство социального исчезновения и стоическую стойкость в моменты краха. Продолжаем бесшовно, подхватывая нить финала предыдущего блока. Блок 8. The social hierarchy and the predator-prey dynamic. To master the art of being untouchable, you must perceive the hidden architecture of human social hierarchies. Whether you are in a boardroom, a social gathering, or a digital space, there is a constant, unspoken negotiation for status taking place. Most people attempt to climb this hierarchy by being impressive. They brag, they dominate the airwaves, they perform. But the true master of the hierarchy knows that status isn't gained by climbing. It is gained by standing still while everyone else is scurrying. This is where the discipline of being unavailable becomes your greatest tactical asset. In nature, a predator does not waste energy on every leaf that rustles. It moves with a terrifying economy of action. When you are constantly reacting to social slights or seeking the approval of the group, you are signaling that you are a subordinate. You are showing that you are at the mercy of the group's collective mood. But when you occupy your space with a calm, strategic indifference, you signal that you are the architect of your own value. You become the alpha of your own reality, not by dominating others, but by refusing to be dominated by them. Think of the way silence functions in a confrontation. When an aggressor attempts to belittle you, they are expecting a fight or flight response. If you fight, you are equal to them. If you flee, you are beneath them. But if you simply look at them, wait for 3 seconds, and then continue with your day as if they were a gust of wind, you have shattered their framework. You have treated their attack as something so insignificant that it didn't even register as a threat. This is the ultimate discipline that makes you untouchable. You are not avoiding the conflict. You are transcending it. You are showing that their power to disturb you is zero. This indifference is what makes you dangerous in professional and social settings. People cannot bribe you with praise because you don't care about being understood. They cannot threaten you with social exclusion because you are already comfortable in your own solitude. You are a person who can walk away from any table where respect is not being served. And the person who is willing to walk away is always the person with the most power in any negotiation. While others are tied to the need for the job, the need for the friend group, or the need for the romantic partner, you are tied only to your own principles. You are unavailable to the desperation that drives most human behavior. But let us look deeper into the silence that makes people reveal everything. In high-stakes environments, the one who talks the most is the one who is most afraid of being ignored. By practicing strategic silence, you force others to fill the silence with their own insecurities. They will try to impress you. They will try to justify themselves to you, and in doing so, they will hand you the map to their psyche. You will see exactly where their ego is fragile. You will see exactly what they are trying to hide. By doing nothing, you have gathered more intelligence than an army of spies. You have remained the observer, and in the world of power, the observer is the one who eventually dictates the terms. To maintain an unshakable calm in a world of chaos, you must go beyond mere willpower. Willpower is a finite resource. It exhausts itself. True Stoic discipline is about rewiring your neural pathways so that indifference becomes your default setting. You must build a mental fortress where the gates are only opened for what is essential. Most people leave their gates wide open, allowing every passerby, every headline, and every insult to trample through their inner sanctum. They are mentally exhausted not because of their work, but because of their lack of boundaries. The first step in this rewiring is the objective redescription. When someone insults you, your brain initially processes it as a physical threat. Your ego screams that you are being wounded, but the untouchable mind strips the event of its emotional clothing. Instead of thinking, "He is disrespecting me," you think, "This person is making vibrations in the air with their vocal cords because they are experiencing internal frustration." By describing the event in cold physical terms, you bypass the emotional centers of the brain. You are no longer a victim of a social attack. You are an observer of a biological process. This is the discipline that makes you untouchable. This leads to the power of being unavailable, even to your own intrusive thoughts. We are often our own worst provocateurs. We replay scenes of past failures or future anxieties, but the strategic mind treats these thoughts with the same indifference it treats a barking dog. You observe the thought, you acknowledge its existence, and then you refuse to engage with it. You become unavailable to your own drama. This internal vacuum is what creates the dangerous aura people sense around you. They see a person who cannot even be manipulated by their own mind, and they realize they have no hope of manipulating you themselves. This is the secret behind they lose control when you stop reacting. Their control was predicated on your predictable biology. When you break the link between a stimulus and your response, you become a glitch in their social matrix. You are no longer playing the game of ego defense. In psychology, this is known as extinction. When a behavior no longer produces the expected result, the person performing that behavior eventually gives up. By remaining indifferent, you are literally training the people around you that their manipulations are useless. You are conditioning them to leave you alone. But how do you handle the pressure of the silence that makes people reveal everything? It requires you to become comfortable with the awkward silence. In our culture, silence is seen as a flaw to be fixed. But for the disciplined man or woman, silence is a tool for extraction. When you refuse to fill the air with noise, you are forcing the other person to confront themselves. They will often spill their secrets, admit their faults, or reveal their true intentions just to make the silence stop. You don't have to be a master interrogator. You just have to be the person who is most comfortable with the void. This mental fortress is not a place of isolation, but a place of clarity. From within these walls, you can see the world as it truly is, not as your emotions want it to be. You begin to see that they can't control you if you don't explain yourself is a universal law. Explaining is a form of leaking energy. Every time you justify your path, you are inviting someone else to judge it. Stop inviting them. Build your fortress, strengthen your gates, and let the world wonder what is happening inside. The mystery of your silence is far more powerful than the clarity of your speech. In an age where everyone is desperate to be seen, the person who chooses to disappear becomes a phantom that haunts the minds of others. This is the power of being unavailable, taken to its absolute extreme. Most people believe that to maintain influence, they must be constantly posting, updating, and engaging. But the strategist knows that constant presence breeds contempt. Familiarity strips you of your edge. To be untouchable, you must master the art of the strategic exit. When you disappear, when you stop responding to messages, stop appearing at every social event, and stop sharing your thoughts on every public issue, you create a massive information vacuum. And because the human brain abhors a vacuum, people will begin to fill that space with their own fantasies and fears. They will wonder, what are they working on? What do they know that I don't? Why don't they need me? By being absent, you are doing more to build your reputation than 1,000 active social media posts ever could. You are signaling that your life is so substantial that you don't need the world's witness to validate it. This is why, when you stop caring about being understood, you become dangerous. A person who can disappear is a person who cannot be tracked, trapped, or predicted. In any conflict, the one who can withdraw and wait is the one who eventually wins. While your opponents are burning their energy in the public square, shouting to be heard and reacting to every shadow, you are in the shadows, refining your skills, building your resources, and maintaining your unshakable calm. Your disappearance is not a retreat. It is a tactical repositioning. This stoic discipline extends to your digital life as well. We are conditioned to react to every notification as if it were a life or death situation. But every time you react to a ping on your phone, you are training your brain to be a servant to external stimuli. The untouchable mind is one that chooses when to be available. When you take hours or even days to respond to a non-essential message, you are communicating something profound. My time is not yours. My focus is not for sale. This makes your actual communication carry 10 times more weight. When the ghost finally speaks, the world falls silent to listen. But let us look at the effect this has on those who wish you ill. They lose control when you stop reacting, and then you vanish. This combination is devastating to a manipulator. Their entire sense of power comes from seeing the effect they have on you. If they can't see you and they can't hear you, they have no feedback loop. They begin to shadow box with their own imagination. They start to make mistakes. They overreach. They expose their vulnerabilities in an attempt to draw you back out. But you remain unavailable. You remain the ghost in the machine. By the time you choose to reappear, the landscape has changed. Your enemies are exhausted, and your value has skyrocketed because of your scarcity. This is the art of strategic indifference in its most active form. You aren't just ignoring the noise, you are removing yourself from the signal altogether. You are asserting that you are the only one who decides when and how you will be perceived. This is the ultimate sovereignty. You are no longer a piece on their chessboard. You are the player who walked away from the table, leaving them to play against an empty chair. Идем дальше. Это заключительный из 4 дополнительных блоков. Мы подводим итог всей философии и переходим к финальному аккорду, состоянию абсолютной ментальной непобедимости. Блок 11. The Unshakable Legacy and the Ultimate Freedom. All the principles we have discussed, the silence, the unavailability, the refusal to explain, converge into a single devastatingly powerful state of being, the unshakable mind. This is not about being a robot. It is about being the master of your own internal climate. When you reach this level of discipline, you realize that the world has no hooks left in you. You have become a person of unshakable calm, and in doing so, you have achieved the ultimate form of human freedom. This freedom is what makes you dangerous to the systems of control that govern the average person. Most people are kept in line by the fear of being misunderstood, the fear of being disliked, or the fear of being left out. But when you truly stop caring about being understood, you break the primary mechanism of social enslavement. You become a pioneer in a world of followers. While others are busy trying to fit in and be available, you are busy building a legacy that will outlast their petty dramas. Your indifference to the temporary makes you a master of the eternal. Think of the power of being unavailable as your final filter for quality in your life. By being unavailable to the low vibration noise, you naturally attract high-value opportunities and individuals who respect boundaries. People who are also on a mission, who also value their silence, and who also don't feel the need to explain every breath they take. You are no longer surrounded by reactors. You are surrounded by actors. This shift in your social circle is the invisible reward of your discipline. You have effectively curated a reality that mirrors your internal fortress. As you close this chapter of your development, understand that "they lose control when you stop reacting" applies to the universe itself. When you stop reacting to bad luck, to setbacks, and to the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, fortune itself loses its power to wound you. You start to see every challenge not as a disaster, but as a sparring partner designed to test your stoic discipline. This is the legacy you leave behind. A life lived with such profound self-possession that others are inspired to find their own silence. Your silence is not just a tactical advantage, it is a gift to yourself. In that silence, you find the voice of your own intuition, the clarity of your own purpose, and the strength of your own resolve. You no longer need the world to tell you who you are, because you have already decided. You have become untouchable because you have realized that the only person who can truly touch your soul is you. Carry this unshakable calm into every room you enter. Let your presence speak for you. Let your results justify you. And let your silence protect you. You are the architect of your own peace, the guardian of your own time, and the sovereign of your own mind. The world is loud, but you are the depth of the ocean. The world is frantic, but you are the mountain. Stay unavailable. Stay dangerous. Stay unshaken.